Hey, and welcome to Discard. Today I'm going to talk about 5 quick display ideas for your game collection or game room. This is part 4. Let's take a look. So the first idea for displaying a game collection is just taking into account the size of your collection. The size of your collection really will dictate whether or not you can display all of your items, or really whether or not you're just going to have to put them onto shelves or into storage. Really, one of the best collections to mess around with displaying things in is a smaller collection. And my collection is kind of a medium collection, and I found that I can really mess around and find different ways to display different things in my collection. But if I had a larger collection, I might invest more in more shelving and just generally putting them on the shelf. Now, in a larger collection, you do get that benefit of seeing those end labels on all of those games, and really a shelf full of video games is just a great display idea in itself. It looks fantastic. It is a really cool place to put odds and ends on the edges of those shelves, but in the end, it is going to be a lot easier when you have a small collection. Some of the issues with a smaller collection are that you may not have enough things to fill out a shelf, so you might have to really spread out your items, maybe fill some of those spaces with non-game related items. But that's probably going to be the biggest issue you have for a small collection. So I definitely think it's something to keep in mind of just the size of your collection, or the size you want your collection to be, and understand that there's pros and cons to displaying items in a collection of those different sizes. The next thing that you might want to think about when you are going to display your collection or you're creating a game room is cleaning. Cleaning is one of those things that you don't really want to talk about when you're talking about game rooms. You just want to talk about the games and displaying them and playing them and doing all of those sorts of things, but cleaning is one of those things you really need to keep in mind when you're actually setting up your collection. When I'm looking around for different display ideas, I want to find some that are enclosed and some that are open, and that gives people a lot more opportunity to find display stands that maybe keep the dust that's in their house off of their games. The open display stands are also really good, and especially if you have a really dusty environment, you may want to think about putting those inside of a glass case or some sort of enclosure. But for the most of the collections that I have seen, they're not enclosed, so they're going to be open to the dust and other things that are floating around your house. And in that case, you really have to set up a schedule to clean your items. When I go to clean my collection, I do it on a pretty regular basis, and I will take my games out of the shelves and actually dust the tops off of them, because that's mostly where the dust lies. I try to use a dry terry cloth and also some canned air to get most of the dust off of there. Some other things you can do in a collection to prevent that dust and grime from getting on your games, or at least moderating it a little bit, is an air cleaner. I personally use an air cleaner in my game room, and that certainly has reduced the amount of dust that gets on my games, which lessens the schedule that I have to go and clean my games. But overall, I think it is a good thing to keep in mind when you're setting up your game collection, because in the end, you're going to be the one cleaning it, so you might want to moderate how much stuff is open to the air or how much stuff is enclosed, and just understand what it's going to take to manage that collection. Another awesome idea that was actually given to me by Ed's Retro Geek Out, another awesome channel about chasing games and finding some awesome things out there, was just displaying like items together. And what I mean by displaying like items is, for instance, if you have a Zelda game and you have a Zelda figure, you might consider putting them on the same shelf together to give that shelf kind of a theme. These kinds of setups can look really cool and really show how much love you have for a certain franchise. I personally use this display idea all the time, and without even thinking about it, I will put Zelda items together with their games, or even put all of my Game Boy games from Zelda all together, because Zelda is my favorite franchise of all time. I love dedicating entire shelf spaces to those items from that franchise. There's definitely a caveat to this idea, and that's if you have a ton of items from a certain franchise, you might not want to mash them all into one shelf, and instead spread them out and really give them enough space so you can see all of those items. If you put too many into one shelf, you'll end up just seeing a big mess on that shelf, and you don't really see any of the individual items, and that can become a problem. So definitely think about spreading items out. But generally speaking, having like items together does make things look a lot better. It is a really cool thing to walk into somebody's game room and see how much love they have for the Mega Man franchise or the Zelda franchise, and just kind of take your time to look through all those different items. So I definitely recommend taking a look into that. And the next idea actually comes from commenters. I've had a lot of people ask about if they have a small space, how do they go about making their game collection in that small space. Sometimes people just have a one wall that they have to deal with, or a corner of a room that they can use to really display their collection. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can use to maximize that. One of the first ways that you can really maximize a small space is just by pushing the large items into the back of a shelf. You can actually take your items and measure them by size and put the smallest ones in the front and the largest ones in the back, and that will really maximize a normal width and depth shelf. Now, on that same note, tiered displays are some of the best ways to display your games and not use up too much space in a game collection. I will definitely say that you could stack your games into your shelf and you will be able to fit more games into that shelf by doing that. But if you really want to display those games and take up less space, going with a tiered display is really the way to go. That's why I talk about them in my videos all the time, and I definitely recommend looking into those. And another way to really maximize that small space is by using your wall space. I've seen a lot of collections where the wall is just completely open and ready for displaying different games. There are certainly a lot of different ways that you can use up your wall space, one of them being floating shelves. Floating shelves are a fantastic add-on to your wall, so you can display different games or amiibo or other game-related items and not be using up your shelf space at the same time. Another thing that you can display on your wall is game controllers, and that'll free up a bunch of space from your shelves and also make a really cool display on your wall. I've even displayed a bunch of my gaming vinyl on my wall and made a beautiful art piece, and I definitely recommend doing that. Is one of the coolest things, and the mounts I have also make it so you can easily remove and put back that vinyl. So these are just a few of the ideas for really maximizing a small space for a game collection, but I'm always talking about more of these ideas in my regular videos. And the last idea today is just experiment with your game collection. I personally will modify where the things are in my game collection at least once a week, just to see if it works better. You can go back to some of my early videos and see that different items in my collection have moved from the left to the right, or I've moved special editions to a new location. But I'm always thinking, where else can I put items and how can I make it look better? But I definitely think it's worth it to not settle with your game collection the way it is and just kind of continually evolve it over time. Sometimes you're going to get more of one game that fits on your shelf, and you're going to have to figure out a new scenario for displaying those games, or you'll have too many figures sitting on a shelf and you're going to have to spread those out. But it's good to always go back in and kind of evolve that collection and try to make it look better. So that's all the ideas I have for today, but I did want to make a note that I am opening up a Discord server, and I just wanted to have that open so people could go in there and share ideas on game collecting, playing, or displaying. It just seems like an awesome idea to be able to talk to the community more and really be able to share ideas faster. So thanks for coming and checking out Discard today. If you have any other ideas on how to display different games or items in your game collection, please let me know in the comments below. I'm always looking for more ideas so that I can catalog them here for everyone. If you want to help out Discard past the subscription, please check out patreon.com/discard and see all the awesome things you can get for $2 a month. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. But otherwise, have a great day and collect what you love.